He stood at the reception table, grinning like the perfect gentleman, then delivered the line that silenced me. "She is just a friend." I did not scream. I simply smiled and replied with one sentence starting with the word, "Just that froze the room." In 4 minutes. Another woman approached, called him by a different name, and everything exploded. The party was only the prelude, because what I found later was not simple infidelity, it was a calculated system. My name is Harper Bennett. I was 38 years old when I watched the foundation of my life dissolve into the humid air of a South Carolina evening, and it did not happen with a scream or a thrown wineglass. It happened with a smile. I have always been a woman who believes in data, in the hard reality of numbers and risk assessment, which is perhaps why I failed to calculate the variable standing right next to me. My husband, Dylan Mercer, was 41 years old and possessed the kind of charm that could convince a burning building that it was simply enjoying a warm afternoon. We were in Charleston for the wedding of one of his biggest clients, a sprawling, opulent affair held at a venue that hugged the coastline. The air smelled of salt and expensive perfume. The humidity was oppressive, the kind that made silk stick to your skin. But Dylan looked impeccable. He always did. He adjusted his cufflinks as we approached the reception tent, a massive structure of white canvas and fairy lights that seemed to float against the darkening sky. The gravel crunched beneath my heels, a sound that would later echo in my nightmares. I remember looking at Dylan's profile. He was calm. There was no sweat on his brow, no nervous twitch in his jaw. He was in his element. He loved these events. He loved being the man who knew everyone, the regional sales director who could work a room until every hand had been shaken and every ego stroked. I was just the accessory he brought along when social protocol demanded it, or at least, that was how it had felt for the last 6 months. We reached the entrance of the tent where the welcome table was set up. It was manned by a wedding coordinator who looked exhausted but maintained a veneer of professional cheerfulness. She was holding a clipboard that seemed heavy with the weight of social expectations. Behind her, the reception was already buzzing. I could hear the clinking of crystal and the low hum of a jazz band playing something generic and soothing. Dylan stepped forward, flashing that signature grin that usually opened doors and closed deals. "Good evening," he said, his voice dropping an octave into that smooth baritone he used for clients. "Dylan Mercer. I believe I am at table 6. The coordinator ran her finger down the list, her manicured nail tracing the rows of names. "Ah, yes, Mr. Mercer, we have you right here." She looked up, her eyes sliding to me. She paused, her pen hovering over the guest list. "And this is?" The pause was standard. It was the moment where a husband says, "This is my wife, Harper," or "This is Harper. She is with me." It is a social reflex, a basic grammatical structure of marriage. I waited for it. I had my polite smile ready, the one I used for his business associates. Dylan did not look at me. He kept his eyes fixed on the coordinator, his smile never wavering, never faltering. He leaned in slightly, as if sharing a minor confidence. "She is just a friend." The world did not stop spinning, but my place in it suddenly ceased to exist. He said it with such ease. It was not a stumble. It was not a nervous slip of the tongue caused by too much pre-wedding bourbon. It was smooth. It was practiced. It was a line he had delivered 100 times before, a muscle memory that fired before his brain could catch up with the reality that his wife was actually standing there. I looked at him. I looked at the man I had been married to for 5 years. I saw the crow's feet around his eyes that I used to kiss. I saw the mouth that had promised me forever. And in that split second, the data in my brain rearranged itself. The late nights at the office, the new passwords on his phone, the way he would turn his screen face down on the nightstand, the sudden need for privacy. I had categorized these as anomalies, as glitches in a stressful quarter. But looking at his face now, I realized they were not anomalies. They were features of a separate life. The coordinator blinked. She looked confused. She looked at me, then back at the list, then back at Dylan. Even she, a stranger paid to manage chaos, sensed that the geometry of this conversation was wrong. Oh, she said, her voice faltering. I apologize. I just assumed. Dylan waved a hand dismissively. No worries at all. Just a friend. He started to turn away, expecting me to follow, expecting me to play along, expecting me to be the silent, supportive partner who would not make a scene in front of his wealthy client. He expected Harper the peacemaker. He expected Harper who hated confrontation. He did not expect Harper Bennett, the risk manager. I felt a coldness settle in my chest, absolute and clarifying. It was the temperature of liquid nitrogen. I did not feel the urge to cry. I did not feel the urge to scream. I felt the urge to correct the record. I took a step forward, closing the distance between myself and the table. The coordinator looked at me, her eyes widening slightly. The bride, who had been standing a few feet away signing the guest book, paused. Her mother, a formidable woman in navy blue silk, turned her head. I smiled. It was the sharpest thing I had ever worn. I looked Dylan dead in the eyes. He saw the shift. For the first time all night, I saw a flicker of panic behind his contact lenses. He opened his mouth to speak, perhaps to do damage control. But I was faster. I spoke clearly, my voice pitched perfectly to carry over the jazz music and the chatter of the nearby guests. Just a friend? I repeated the words, tasting them. I turned to the coordinator, then swept my gaze to the bride and her mother. I am just the friend who paid $4,000 for the custom tuxedo he is wearing tonight. I am just the friend who holds the deed to the house he sleeps in. And I am just the friend who has been his wife for 1,826 days. The silence that followed was heavy. It was physical. It radiated outward from our table like a shockwave. The jazz band seemed to fade into the background. The bride stopped mid-signature, the pen freezing in her hand. The mother of the bride narrowed her eyes, her gaze shifting from me to Dylan with the precision of a laser sight. She was a woman who understood assets and liabilities, and she had just identified a liability. Dylan turned a shade of pale that clashed with his tan. Harper, he hissed, his voice low and dangerous. Don't do this here. You are drunk. I was stone-cold sober. I had not had a drop of alcohol since Tuesday. I am not drunk. Dylan, I said, my voice dropping to a conversational level that was somehow more terrifying than a shout. I am just clarifying your guest list. You would not want to lie to your hosts. I did not wait for his rebuttal. I did not wait for the inevitable gaslighting, the accusations that I was being hysterical or sensitive. I simply turned around. I walked away. I could feel the eyes on my back. I could feel the whispers starting, the murmur of scandal that would ripple through the reception before the appetizers were even served, but I did not care. I walked past the stunned valet, past the expensive imported cars, and out into the humid parking lot. My heels clicked rhythmically on the asphalt. Click, click, click. It was the sound of a countdown. I reached my car, a sensible sedan that I had bought with my own bonus money 3 years ago. I unlocked it and slid into the driver's seat. The leather was cool against my bare arms. I closed the door, shutting out the humidity, the jazz, and the lie. Silence. I sat there for a moment, my hands gripping the steering wheel. I breathed in for a count of 4. I breathed out for a count of 4. My heart rate was elevated, but my mind was operating with terrifying clarity. Then, the phone started. It began with a vibration in my clutch purse, then another, then a continuous buzzing that rattled against the center console. I pulled the phone out. Dylan. Where are you going? Dylan. Get back here. You are embarrassing me. Dylan. It was a joke. Harper. Jesus. You are so sensitive. Dylan. Pick up the phone. I watched the messages roll in, detached, as if reading a transcript of a court case. Then came the messages from his family. His sister, asking if we were okay. His mother, asking why Dylan looked so upset in the background of a photo someone had just posted. And then, a notification from a number I did not have saved. It was a text message. Short, brutal. Unknown number. Who are you to Dylan? I stared at the screen. The question hung there, glowing in the darkness of the car. Who are you to Dylan? It was not a question from a curious bystander. It was a question from a stakeholder. Someone else had been told a story. Someone else had been given a version of Dylan Mercer where I did not exist, or where I was merely a footnote, a roommate, a friend. I did not reply. I did not block the number. I took a screenshot. I tossed the phone onto the passenger seat and started the engine. I needed to drive. I needed to move. But before I put the car in reverse, a habit kicked in. It was the same habit that made me double-check the stove before leaving the house. The same habit that made me successful at Crescent Harbor Compliance Group. Check the numbers. If he was lying about who I was, he was lying about other things. And in a marriage, lies usually cost money. I picked up the phone again and opened our joint banking app. My thumb hovered over the icon. I hesitated for a fraction of a second, a final moment of innocence before the truth shattered it completely. I tapped the screen. Face ID logged me in. The balance looked normal at first glance, but I scrolled down to the pending transactions. My eyes scanned the lines: gas station, coffee shop, the dry cleaner where he picked up the tuxedo I paid for, and then I saw it. A transaction from 2 hours ago. It was a pending transfer. The amount was $6,500. It was not a purchase. It was labeled clearly in the merchant details. Deposit, Oak River, residential. I stared at the name, Oak River Residential. I knew every apartment complex in Savannah. I knew the market. I managed risk for a living. I had never heard of Oak River Residential. I quickly switched apps and typed the name into the browser. The search results loaded instantly. Oak River Residential. Luxury apartments. Leasing now. Location? Charleston. North Charleston. It was here. He was not just cheating on me. He was not just playing a game. He was setting up a base of operations. He had put down a deposit on an apartment 2 hours before telling a room full of people that I was just a friend. This was not an affair. This was an exit strategy. I looked up at the rearview mirror. I saw my own eyes reflected in the dark glass. They looked different than they had 10 minutes ago. The softness was gone. The confusion was gone. If he wanted to tell his life story as a bachelor, if he wanted to erase 5 years of marriage with a smile and a shrug, that was his choice. But he had made a critical error. He had forgotten who handled the paperwork. He had forgotten who managed the accounts. He had forgotten that while he was the face of the operation, I was the infrastructure. I put the car in gear. Tonight, he would drink champagne and spin his lies. He would tell the woman with the unknown number whatever she wanted to hear. He would tell his client that I was unstable. But tomorrow I would read the appendix to his life story, and I would begin writing the corrections. I drove out of the parking lot, leaving the fairy lights and the ocean behind me. I did not look back. The navigation system asked for a destination. I did not type in home. I typed in a different address, one I had not visited in years, but one that suddenly felt like the only safe place left in the world. As I merged onto the highway, the phone buzzed one more time. It was the banking app again. Another notification. Alert. Address change request detected for joint checking account. I laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. He was moving fast. He thought he was ahead of the game. He thought he was the only player on the board. He had no idea that he had just handed the dice to me. My job at Crescent Harbor Compliance Group is not exciting to most people. When I tell strangers at dinner parties that I work as an operational risk manager, their eyes usually glaze over before I finish the sentence. They imagine I spend my days staring at spreadsheets and nagging people about safety goggles. They are not entirely wrong about the spreadsheets, but they miss the point of the profession. My job is not to be annoying. My job is to see the crack in the dam before the water breaks through. I look for patterns. I look for the anomaly in the data set that suggests a system is failing. I am paid a salary of $140,000 a year to be the person who does not believe in coincidences. It is a bitter irony that I was excellent at auditing multinational supply chains, but terrible at auditing my own husband. Dylan Mercer was the kind of man who made you forget to check the math. He was the regional sales director for a mid-sized medical device company, a job that suited him perfectly because it required 80% charm and 20% actual product knowledge. He was handsome in a way that felt accessible, with a smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes and a laugh that made everyone else in the room feel like they were the funniest person alive. He was a performer. Life, to Dylan, was a series of stages, and he was always the protagonist. For 5 years, I was the stage manager. I handled the logistics. I handled the reality. While Dylan was out buying rounds of drinks for potential clients and talking about the big picture, I was at home making sure the electricity bill was paid and the retirement accounts were funded. He called himself a visionary. He called me his rock. It sounded romantic at the beginning. The way he said it, "You are my rock. Harper, I could not fly without you." Now, looking back through the lens of a forensic accountant, I realized that a rock is just something you stand on to make yourself look taller. Our finances were the first place where the fiction of our partnership began to show. Though I chose to ignore the red ink, we lived in Savannah, Georgia, in a restored Victorian home on a street lined with live oaks and Spanish moss. It was a beautiful house, the kind that appeared in magazines, with a wraparound porch and original heart pine floors. It was also entirely mine. I had purchased the house 2 years before I met Dylan. I used the inheritance my grandmother left me for the down payment, and I secured the mortgage based on my own credit score and my own income. When we got married, Dylan moved in. He brought his clothes, his collection of high-end watches, and a significant amount of student loan debt. He did not bring equity. For the first year, he made jokes about living in his wife's house. By the 3rd year, the jokes had turned into serious conversations over wine on the patio. "It just feels weird. Harper," he would say, swirling his Pinot Noir, "I am putting so much work into this place. I paid for the landscaping last month. It feels like we are not really partners if my name is not on the deed. It is about fairness. It is about us building a legacy together." I almost gave in. I remember sitting at the kitchen island with the paperwork in front of me, a pen in my hand, ready to sign the quitclaim deed that would add him to the title. It would have been the easy thing to do. It would have stopped the subtle digs he made about me being controlling. But something in my gut, that professional instinct that twitches when a quarterly report looks too perfect, stopped me. I told him we should wait until we refinanced. I told him the interest rates were not right. I lied to buy time, and eventually, he stopped asking. Though the resentment lingered like humidity in August, instead of the house, I gave him the credit card. It was a compromise. I added him as an authorized user to my primary travel rewards card. It seemed logical at the time. He traveled for work, and while his company reimbursed expenses, he often had to float the costs for weeks. It is for convenience. I told myself, it helps us accumulate points for vacations. That piece of plastic became his leash, and I was the one getting choked. The statements became a monthly diary of his escalating lifestyle. At first, it was just business dinners and flights. Then, the categories began to blur. There were charges for high-end clothing boutiques that he claimed were for looking the part for clients. There were spa treatments he said were networking events. There were dinners at steakhouses on Tuesday nights when he told me he was just grabbing a sandwich at his desk. I watched the balances climb. $3,000 one month, $5,000 the next. When I brought it up, he would sigh. The heavy sigh of a man burdened by a nagging wife. "You have to spend money to make money." "Harper," he would say, checking his reflection in the hallway mirror, "I am building relationships. This is how the game is played. Besides, the commission check next quarter is going to be huge. We will pay it off then." The commission checks were always coming. They were always just around the corner, elusive and promising, like a mirage. When they did arrive, they were never quite as large as he predicted, or there was always some sudden, urgent expense that took priority over paying me back. I absorbed the cost. I absorbed it because I had the cushion. My mother had passed away shortly after I turned 30, leaving me a trust fund. It was not enough to buy a private island, but it was enough to ensure that I would never be homeless. It was my safety net, a quiet pile of index funds and bonds that generated a steady stream of security. Dylan knew about the trust. He did not know the exact amount, but he knew it existed. He treated it like a backup generator that he could switch on whenever his own power failed. "We are fine," he would say when I worried about savings. "You have that money from your mom. We are not going to starve." He resented that money. I could see it in the way his jaw tightened when I paid for something big, like the roof repair or the new HVAC system. Without needing to ask him for a contribution, he wanted to be the provider, but he lacked the discipline to provide, so he resented me for having the safety he could not offer. The financial infidelity was bad, but it was the digital secrecy that should have been the final siren. It started slowly. In the first year of our marriage, his phone was community property. It would sit on the coffee table, screen up, buzzing with texts from his friends or his mother. If he was driving, he would ask me to answer it. By year 4, the phone had become a black box. He changed the passcode. When I asked why, he said his company had implemented new security protocols for client data. It was a plausible lie. Crescent Harbor had similar policies. But then the physical habits changed. The phone went everywhere with him. It went to the bathroom. It went to the garage when he took out the trash. If we were watching a movie on the couch and I shifted my weight, he would instinctively flip the phone face down. There were the calls, the evening calls. We would be cleaning up after dinner, and his phone would ring. He would glance at it, a look of tight concentration on his face, and say, "I have to take this. It is the West Coast team. Crisis control." He would step out onto the back porch, through the glass doors. I would watch him pacing in the dark. He did not look like a man discussing medical device compliance or sales targets. His body language was different. He was softer. He would lean against the railing, hand in the pocket of his slacks, smiling at the darkness. When I asked him about it, the gaslighting was instantaneous and masterful. "You are imagining things," he would say, laughing as if I had told a cute joke. I was smiling because I diffused a situation with a difficult client. "Why are you so suspicious?" "It is exhausting." "Harper, you are so sensitive lately. Is it work stress? Maybe you need to talk to someone." He made me question my own reality. He made me feel like the villain for demanding transparency. He turned my analytical nature against me, painting me as a cold, calculating woman who could not just trust her husband. So I stopped asking. I stopped looking at the itemized phone bills. I stopped questioning why he needed to stay late at the office 3 nights a week. I chose peace. I chose the illusion of a happy marriage over the jagged edges of the truth. I told myself that marriage was about compromise, about giving people space, about accepting that no one is perfect. I told myself that we were just going through a rough patch, a slump that every couple hits around the 5-year mark. I was a coward. I see that now. I was not being a supportive wife. I was being a negligent risk manager. I had ignored the data because I did not want to write the report. I sat in my car, the engine idling, the air conditioning blasting against the heat of the night. The memory of the reception played over and over in my mind, but it was not the humiliation that stuck with me. It was not the whispers of the bride's mother or the shock of the wedding coordinator. It was Dylan's face when he looked at that woman and said, "She is just a friend." His expression had been terrifyingly calm. There was no guilt. There was no conflict. It was not the face of a man who was panicked about getting caught. It was the face of a man who had already moved on. He had not just erased me in that moment. He had erased me months ago. The man who had been sleeping in my bed, eating the food I bought, and spending the credit limit I authorized was not my husband. He was a tenant who was already packed and waiting for his lease to expire. He looked at me with the absolute indifference of a stranger. He was not afraid of losing me. You cannot lose something you have already discarded. I looked down at my hands on the steering wheel. They were steady. The shaking had stopped. The sadness that had threatened to overwhelm me 10 minutes ago was receding, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. He thought I was just a friend. He thought I was a source of funds, a convenient roommate, a placeholder until he could launch his new life in Charleston with a woman who probably did not know he was using a credit card with my name on the account history. He thought he was the protagonist of this story. I put the car in reverse and backed out of the space. The gravel crunched under the tires. Dylan Mercer was a good salesman. He could sell ice to a polar bear, but he had forgotten the most important rule of business: never defraud the person who keeps the books. I drove toward the highway. I had a lot of work to do before Monday morning. I had to audit a marriage. And this time, I was going to be thorough. The silence in my car was not peaceful. It was a vacuum, waiting to be filled by the next disaster. I had driven 5 miles down the coast, pulling into the deserted parking lot of a closed beachside souvenir shop. I needed to be stationary. I needed to be off the road because my hands were trembling just enough to make driving dangerous. I was not shaking from fear. I was shaking from the adrenaline of realization. Then, my phone lit up on the passenger seat. The name on the screen made my stomach turn over, not with anger, but with a sharp, protective pang. Lila. Lila was 16 years old. She was Dylan's daughter from a brief relationship in his early 20s, long before he met me. Her mother lived in Arizona and was mostly absent, appearing only on birthdays or when she needed money. For the last 5 years, I had been the one helping Lila with her history homework. I was the one who taught her how to parallel park. I was the one who bought her prom dress last spring when Dylan said it was too expensive. Technically, I was her stepmother. In practice, I was the only adult in her life who consistently kept promises. I stared at the phone. Lila was supposed to be at the reception. She had been so excited to wear her navy blue dress, the one we had picked out together. I picked up the phone and swiped to answer. "Lila, are you okay?" My voice sounded surprisingly steady, masking the chaos inside me. "Harper." Her voice was small. It was breathless. The way someone sounds when they have been running or crying. "Harper, where did you go? Dad is looking for you. He is telling everyone you got sick. He says you had a migraine." "I am fine." "Lila," I said, keeping my tone gentle. "I just needed some air. Are you safe? Where are you?" "I am in the bathroom," she whispered. The echo of tiled walls confirmed it. "Harper, I need to tell you something. I saw him." My grip on the phone tightened. "You saw your dad?" "Yes, but not at the table." She paused, and I could hear her taking a shaky breath. "About 20 minutes ago, before you left, I went to find a waiter to ask for a soda. I went near the service entrance, where the catering trucks are parked. It was dark." "Go on," I said. "He was there, with a lady." I closed my eyes. "What lady? Lila?" "The one with the red hair. The one who was sitting at the back near the bar. She had a green dress on." Lila's voice dropped even lower. "He was hugging her. Harper. But it was not a friendly hug. It was tight, and he was holding her face." I looked out the windshield at the dark ocean. "Did you hear what they said?" "I heard a little bit," Lila said. "I recorded it. I was scared. But I remembered what you told me about car accidents. You said always document everything, so I took my phone out." My heart broke a little for her. I had taught her risk management for driving, not for witnessing her father betray her stepmother. "Send it to me, Lila, right now." "I am sending it," she said. "But Harper, there is something else. It was weird. She did not call him Dylan." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "She called him Ethan." The name hung in the air between us, foreign and heavy. Ethan. "Are you sure?" I asked. "I am sure," Lila insisted. "She said it twice. 'Ethan, stop worrying.' That is what she said." "Okay," I said, my mind racing. "Lila, listen to me. This is very important. Do not tell your father you spoke to me. Do not tell him you saw anything. Wash your face, go back to the party, and stay with your cousins. If he asks, you were in the bathroom fixing your makeup. Can you do that for me?" "I can do it," she said, though her voice wavered. "Are you coming back?" "No," I said honestly. "I am not coming back tonight. I will call you tomorrow. I promise. You are safe. I love you." "Love you too," she whispered, and the line went dead. A moment later, a message notification chimed. It was a video file. I tapped play. The video was vertical, shaky, and grainy. filmed from behind a stack of crates or equipment cases. The lighting was poor, casting long, distorted shadows against the white siding of the catering tent. But the audio was clear enough. In the frame, two figures were silhouetted against the light spilling from the service door. One was unmistakably Dylan. I recognized the cut of the tuxedo I had paid for. I recognized the way he stood. Weight shifted to his left leg. The woman was shorter, her red hair appearing dark in the shadows, her hands resting on the lapels of his jacket. "You need to calm down," the woman's voice said. It was a smoky voice, confident and demanding. "Nobody is looking at us." "It is too risky," Dylan's voice replied. It was the same voice he used when he was trying to close a difficult sale. Urgent, persuasive, slightly edged with panic. "She is right inside. If she sees us, the whole timeline falls apart." "She is clueless, Ethan," the woman said. She reached up and brushed something off his shoulder. "She is just the bank account. You said that yourself." I felt a physical blow to my chest, as if the steering wheel had punched me. "Just the bank account." "I know what I said," Dylan snapped, looking over his shoulder toward the party. "But we are so close to the finish line. Do not blow this tonight. Just go back to your hotel. I will meet you later." "Fine," she said. She leaned in and kissed him. It was not a peck. It was a claim of ownership. "But do not make me wait too long." The camera jerked downward, filming Lila's shoes on the pavement, and then the video ended. I sat in the dark, the screen glowing against my face. Ethan. Why Ethan? Dylan's middle name was James. He had no brothers named Ethan. He had no reason to use an alias unless the life he was living with me was not the only life he was living. I set the phone down on the console and opened my laptop, which I always kept in my trunk in a padded case. It was a habit from my job. Crisis can strike at any hour. I tethered the laptop to my phone's hotspot. If he was building a life as Ethan, that life required infrastructure. It required an address. It required a credit history. It required a digital footprint. I started with the email. I had access to Dylan's primary personal email because I had set it up for him 4 years ago when his old provider shut down. He likely thought I had forgotten the password, or he was arrogant enough to believe he had deleted everything incriminating. I logged in. The inbox looked normal. Receipts for golf rounds, spam from retailers, a confirmation for the hotel tonight. I went to the trash folder. Empty. He had purged it recently. I went to the spam folder. Nothing of interest. Then I went to the search bar. I typed in address. Hundreds of results popped up. Shipping confirmations, newsletters. I narrowed the search parameters. I filtered for the last 30 days. There. A notification from a regional bank. Not the one we banked with. The subject line was innocuous. Confirmation of profile update. I opened it. Dear customer, this email is to confirm that the mailing address on your account ending in 4492 has been successfully updated to P.O. Box 892, The Pack Ship Store, North Charleston, SC. A P.O. Box. He had moved his correspondence to a rented box 3 hours away from our home. He was diverting his mail. That explained why I had not seen any strange statements arriving at our house in Savannah. He was physically intercepting the paper trail. I took a screenshot of the email. I saved it as a PDF. I uploaded it to a secure cloud storage folder I had just created, naming the folder, the appendix. Next, I opened a new tab. I went to the credit monitoring service we used. I had the login credentials because, once again, I was the one who managed our identity theft protection. We had signed up for it after the Equifax breach years ago. I logged in. The dashboard showed 2 profiles, Harper Bennett and Dylan Mercer. I clicked on Dylan's profile. His credit score had dropped 40 points in the last 2 months. That was the first red flag. A drop that significant meant high utilization or hard inquiries. I navigated to the inquiries section. There it was. 3 days ago. A hard pull from a lender called Palmetto Auto Finance. He was buying a car, or trying to, but that was not the detail that made my blood run cold. I clicked on the details of the inquiry. Sometimes, depending on the reporting agency, You could see a summary of the application data submitted to the lender. It was a feature designed to help you spot if a thief was using your wrong address or phone number. I scanned the fields: applicant name, Dylan J. Mercer, current address, the P.O. Box in North Charleston, employer, Medical Device Solutions, his actual job, annual income, listed correctly, and then the field for marital status. I stared at the word, blinking to make sure the pixelated letters were not playing tricks on my tired eyes. Single. He had checked the box for single. He had not checked married. He had not checked separated, in the eyes of this lender, and likely in the eyes of the law he was trying to circumvent. Harper Bennett did not exist. By declaring himself single on a federal credit application, he was committing fraud. But more than that, he was declaring his intent. You do not check single when you are having a midlife crisis. You check single when you are executing a replacement. I felt a strange sensation in my fingertips. It was the feeling of a puzzle snapping together. The apartment deposit, the P.O. box, the Ethan alias, the single status. He was not just leaving me. He was bifurcating his existence. He was keeping Dylan Mercer, the married man in Savannah, on life support, just long enough to fully gestate Ethan, the single man in Charleston. He was likely using our joint assets to fund the birth of this new man. I took a screenshot of the inquiry. I downloaded the full credit report as a PDF. I saved everything to the appendix folder. I sat back in the driver's seat. My laptop screen was the only light in the car. The ocean roared outside, invisible and vast. I needed a lawyer, but I did not need the kind of lawyer who mediated amicable separations. I did not need a lawyer who talked about conscious uncoupling. I needed a shark. I needed someone who understood that this was not a divorce. This was a demolition. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the name: Marina Klein. Marina and I had gone to college together. She had been the wildest girl in our sorority, the one who danced on tables and drank tequila like water. Now, she was the most feared family law attorney in Atlanta. She was known for dismantling egos with the same efficiency she used to dismantle keg stands. We had not spoken in 6 months, mostly just likes on Instagram, but I knew she would answer. I typed a message. Marina, it is Harper. I am in trouble. Not the jail kind, the other kind. I have a video, a credit report, and a bank transfer that says my husband is not who he says he is. I need to see you tomorrow morning. Name the time and place. I hit send. The 3 dots appeared instantly. Marina was awake. 8 in the morning. Came the reply. My office. Bring coffee and bring the receipts. Do not talk to him. Do not text him. Do not breathe in his direction. See you then. I exhaled. A long, shaky breath. I had a plan. I had a team. I looked at the video file from Lila one last time. I needed to see it again. I needed to numb myself to the pain so that I could function. I scrubbed the video to the very end, past the part where the woman called him Ethan. I wanted to hear the last thing she said, the part Lila had mentioned but I had missed in my first frantic viewing. I held the phone up to my ear and turned the volume to the maximum. The woman's voice cut through the static, clearer this time. Your wedding is next week. Ethan, I am wearing a white dress, okay? So you better be ready. I froze. Your wedding is next week. I looked at the date on my dashboard. Today was Saturday. Next week, he wasn't just renting an apartment. He wasn't just hiding mail. My husband, the man who had stood at a reception table 3 hours ago and called me just a friend, was planning to marry another woman in 7 days. He was not just a cheater. He was a bigamist in training. I closed the laptop. I started the car. If he wanted a wedding, he would get one. But I was going to be the wedding planner from hell. The waiting room of Klein and Alder Family Law did not look like a place where marriages went to die. It looked like the lobby of a high-end investment bank. The walls were paneled in mahogany that probably cost more than my first car, and the floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the Atlanta skyline, gray and steel against the morning sun. There were no tissues on the tables, only heavy architectural magazines and a coffee machine that looked like it required a pilot's license to operate. I sat on a leather sofa that was stiff and uncomfortable, my laptop bag resting heavy against my ankle. I had driven 3 hours from the coast to be here, fueled by 2 cups of black coffee and a rage that had calcified into something cold and hard. A young assistant with impeccable posture called my name. Harper Bennett? Ms. Klein will see you now. I followed her down a hallway lined with abstract art, the kind that looks like violent slashes of paint on a neutral background. It felt appropriate. Marina Klein stood up from behind a desk that was large enough to land a helicopter on. She had not changed much since college, though her hair was shorter, sharper, cut in a bob that suggested she did not have time for split ends or nonsense. She wore a cream-colored suit that screamed billable hours. "Harper," she said, not offering a hug, but extending a hand that felt strong and dry. "You look tired. You also look like you are ready to burn a village." "Sit down." I sat. I did not waste time with pleasantries. I did not ask about her kids or her golf game. I placed my laptop on her desk, opened it, and turned the screen toward her. "I have an appendix," I said. Marina raised an eyebrow, pulled her reading glasses from her pocket, and leaned in. I walked her through it. The video from the wedding reception, the transfer of $6,500 to Oak River Residential, the email confirming the change of address to a P.O. box, the credit inquiry from Palmetto Auto Finance where the applicant, Dylan J. Mercer, had checked the box for single. Marina watched the video twice. She zoomed in on the credit application. She scrolled through the screenshots of the text messages. She did not gasp. She did not look sympathetic. She looked like a surgeon evaluating a tumor, clinical, focused, and calculating the angle of incision. "Okay," she said, sitting back and lacing her fingers together. "This is not a drifting husband. Harper, this is a premeditated extraction. He is not just leaving you, he is erasing you." She reached for a yellow legal pad and a fountain pen. "Let us do the inventory. I need the hard numbers. I need to know exactly what is yours, what is his, and what is the gray area that we are going to fight over." I took a breath. I had rehearsed this in the car. The house in Savannah. I said, "Current market value is roughly $850,000. The deed is in my name only. I bought it 2 years before the marriage." "Mortgage?" she asked, writing quickly. "I refinanced 3 years ago to get a better rate." I said, "The mortgage is also in my name. He pays nothing toward the principal. He handles utilities and groceries sometimes." "Good," Marina muttered. "No commingling of funds on the primary asset. That is a fortress. What else? There is a trust fund." I continued. "My mother left it to me. It is managed by a third-party firm. The principal is about $1.2 million. The dividends pay out quarterly into a separate account that Dylan does not have access to." Marina nodded. "Inheritance is separate property, unless you did something stupid like use it to pay off his student loans or buy a joint vacation home. Did you?" I shook my head. "No. I used the dividends for maintenance on the Savannah house and personal savings. I never mixed it with the joint checking." "Smart girl," Marina said, a faint smile touching her lips. "What about retirement?" "I have a 401k and stock options from Crescent Harbor Compliance Group," I said. "The unvested options are worth about $200,000. "And him?" Marina asked. "He has a 401k. I said, "I think there is about $80,000 in it. He cashed out a chunk of it 2 years ago to pay off a credit card debt he hid from me." Marina made a note, circling it twice. "Dissipation of marital assets. We will claw that back. Anything else?" "Think. Harper, is there anything small? Land? A boat? A timeshare?" I hesitated. "There is the cabin." I said, "It is in the Blue Ridge Mountains. My aunt left it to me 4 years ago. It is small, basically a shack on 3 acres. But the land value has gone up, inherited during the marriage." Marina noted. "Kept separate?" "Yes. The deed is in my name." Marina put the pen down. She looked at me, her eyes intense. "Okay, here's the situation. You are in a strong position regarding the big assets. The house, the trust, the cabin, those are yours. But in Georgia, income earned during the marriage is marital property. His debt is potentially your debt. And if he is out there creating a new financial identity, he is liable to drag your credit score down into the gutter with him. She leaned forward. We have 72 hours. This is the containment phase. We are going to lock him down before he realizes the war has started. She started listing tasks, her voice clipping along like a metronome. Step 1, she said. The credit cards. You said he is an authorized user on your primary account? Yes. I said, cancel it. Now. Marina pointed to my phone. Open the app. Remove him. Do not warn him. Just cut the cord. If he is at a gas station in 10 minutes, I want that card to decline. I pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over the Remove Authorized User button. I thought about the time he bought me flowers with this card. Then I thought about the deposit for the apartment. I tapped the button. User removed. Done. I said, Step 2. Marina continued. The joint accounts. We cannot close them without his signature, but we can freeze them for suspicious activity. And given what you showed me, that is not a lie. He is moving money to an entity you do not recognize. Call the bank. Tell them you suspect fraudulent transfers. Freeze it all. I made the call right there in the office. I put it on speaker so Marina could hear. I used my professional voice, the one I used when telling a CEO his supply chain was compromised. I told the bank representative that I did not recognize the transfer to Oak River Residential and that I was worried about identity theft. The representative, sensing the urgency, froze the checking and savings accounts immediately. Step 3, Marina said, turning back to her computer. Digital security. Change every password you have. Email, social media, banking, retirement, and set up two-factor authentication to a burner phone or an app he cannot access. If he knows your mother's maiden name or your first pet's name, change the security questions to lies that only you know. Make the name of your first pet Godzilla. I nodded, already typing on my laptop. Step 4, Marina said, and this was where her voice dropped a decibel. Beneficiaries. Harper, if you walk out of here and get hit by a bus, who gets the trust fund? Who gets the house? I froze. Dylan, I whispered. Exactly, Marina said grimly. We are going to draft a codicil to your will today. We are going to update the beneficiary designations on your insurance and your brokerage accounts. We are going to set up a holding company, a fictional LLC structure for now, to prepare to receive your assets once the divorce is filed. We will call it Just Life Story Holdings if you want to be petty. But for now, let us stick to something boring like HB Management. We need to make sure that if anything happens to you, he does not get a single dime. She began typing rapidly on her keyboard, the sound filling the room. Now, she said without looking up, the rules of engagement. This is the hardest part. You are going to want to scream at him. You are going to want to text him and ask him why. You are going to want to send him the video of him kissing the redhead. Do not do it. She stopped typing and looked at me. Harper, from this moment on, you do not speak to Dylan Mercer. You do not answer his calls. You do not reply to his texts. If he shows up at the door, you do not let him in. If he threatens you, you call the police. Any communication goes through me. We are going to starve him of information. He does not get to know that you know. He just gets to know that his credit card does not work and his bank account is frozen. Let him panic. Panic makes people make mistakes. I nodded. I can do that. Good. Marina turned back to her screen. I am running a background check on him right now. My paralegal is pulling public records. Let us see if... She stopped. Her fingers hovered over the keys. She squinted at the monitor. Well, she said softly, that is interesting. What? I asked, feeling a spike of anxiety. I am looking at the Georgia Department of Revenue database. Marina said, it seems your husband registered a vehicle 10 days ago, a BMW X5. Did you know about a BMW? No. I said, he drives a company sedan. He bought a BMW. Marina said, and he registered it. But look at the address. She turned the monitor toward me. Owner, Dylan J. Mercer. Address, P.O. Box 892, North Charleston. SC. He used the P.O. Box for the registration. Marina said, that is illegal. You cannot register a vehicle to a P.O. Box in Georgia without a physical address on file. He likely forged a utility bill or used a fake lease agreement to get this through the DMV. She looked at me, her eyes dark. Harper, do you understand what this means? I shook my head slowly. That he has a new car? No, Marina said. It means he has already moved out. Legally speaking, by registering his primary vehicle at a new address in a different state, he is establishing residency away from the marital home. He is building a paper trail that says he does not live with you. This is not just an affair. This is a migration. She leaned back in her chair. He is trying to ghost a marriage, she said, but he is sloppy. He left footprints. She opened a drawer and pulled out a form. Sign this, she said. It is a request for a total credit freeze with all 3 bureaus: TransUnion, Equifax, Experian. Once you sign this, nobody opens a lemonade stand in your name without a PIN code that only I have. I signed the paper. The ink was black and permanent. Then Marina handed me another form. This is a subpoena request. We are going to pull the loan file for that BMW. We are going to pull the application for the apartment. We are going to see exactly what he told these people. Because if he used your income to qualify for that car while claiming he is single, that is bank fraud. She looked me dead in the eye. Harper, you need to stop thinking of yourself as a wife. You are a victim of identity theft. He is using your credit history, your stability, and your assets as a launch pad for his new life. You are not his partner. You are his credit mule. The term hit me like a slap. Credit mule. I felt a wave of nausea, followed by a surge of clarity. I was not losing a husband. I was shedding a parasite. My phone buzzed on the desk. It was an email notification. I glanced at it. It was from a real estate website. I had shared my login with Dylan years ago when we were looking for investment properties, and he must have forgotten to log me out on his device, or he was just that careless. Appointment confirmation. The subject line read. I opened it. Hi, Dylan. We are all set for the showing of the property at 420 Marsh View Lane this afternoon at 4. The owner is excited to meet you. And then, underneath the address, a cheerful little note from the realtor. Please feel free to bring your fiancé. The master suite closet is something she is going to love. I stared at the word, fiancé. I turned the phone around so Marina could see it. She read it. She did not smile. She simply reached for the phone and took a picture of the screen with her own device. Well, Marina said, her voice dry as dust, I guess we know what the BMW is for. It is for the wedding procession. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city. He wants to play house. Harper, he wants to play the happy groom. She turned back to me, and for the first time, she looked dangerous. Let us see how he pays for the wedding when his credit score hits 0. I met Lila at a coffee shop called The Roasted Bean on the outskirts of Savannah, far enough from our neighborhood that we would not run into anyone who knew us, and certainly far enough that Dylan would never think to look there. It was Sunday afternoon, the kind of day that usually smelled of laundry detergent and slow-cooked pot roast in our house. Now, it smelled of stale espresso and rain. I arrived 20 minutes early. I sat in a booth at the back, facing the door, my back against the wall. This was a tactical position. I had spent the last 24 hours dismantling my financial life with the cold precision of a surgeon, but sitting here waiting for my 16-year-old stepdaughter, I felt my hands shaking again. This was not about money. This was about collateral damage. When Lila walked in, my heart broke. She looked smaller than she had 2 days ago. She was wearing an oversized hoodie that swallowed her frame, the hood pulled up over her messy bun. She was not the vibrant, annoying, wonderful teenager who blasted pop music in the shower. She looked like a fugitive. She saw me and hurried over, sliding into the booth opposite me. She did not say hello. She just looked at me with wide, terrified eyes. He is at the golf course, she whispered, as if he might pop out from behind the sugar dispenser. He thinks I am at the library studying for a chemistry test. I reached across the table and covered her hand with mine. Her fingers were ice cold. It is okay, I said, keeping my voice low and steady. You are safe. I am not going to let anything happen to you. Lila pulled her hand back and wrapped it around her paper cup of hot chocolate. She stared down at the swirling foam. I feel sick. Harper, I feel like I'm lying to him. You are not lying, I said firmly. You are protecting yourself. There is a difference. I paused. Studying her face, I needed information, but I had to be careful. I could not turn her into a double agent. That was not fair. She was a child, regardless of how grown up she tried to act. Lila, I said softly, you do not have to tell me anything you do not want to, but I need to understand what is happening so I can fix it. You said something on the phone about him telling you not to call me his wife. When did that start? Lila bit her lip. She looked out the window at the gray parking lot. A few months ago, she said quietly. We were at the mall. We ran into some people he knew from work. I started to say something about you, about how you were helping me with my project, and he cut me off. He introduced me, but he did not mention you. She took a shaky breath. Later, in the car, he told me that it is better if people think he is single right now. He said it helps his image at work. He said companies like to hire guys who are unencumbered. That is the word he used. Unencumbered. I felt a flash of heat in my chest. Unencumbered. That was the corporate word for without baggage. I was the baggage. I thought it was weird, Lila continued, tears pooling in her eyes. I thought maybe it was just some weird adult business strategy, but then he started doing it everywhere. If we went to dinner and you were not there, he would take off his ring. He put it in the cup holder. I nodded slowly. I had suspected the ring removal, but hearing it confirmed by his daughter was a different kind of pain. It was not just a rejection of me. It was a rejection of our family unit in front of her. He was teaching her that truth was flexible if the stakes were high enough. You are not crazy, Lila, I said. That was not normal, and it was not about business. Lila sniffled and wiped her nose with the sleeve of her hoodie. There is more. I waited. He has a phone, she said. Not the one he uses for work, a different one. It is a burner, like in the movies. Where is it? I asked, my risk manager brain instantly cataloging the data. It is in the trunk of the BMW, she said, under the floor mat where the spare tire is. I saw him put it there last week when we were getting groceries. He thought I was looking at my phone, but I saw him lift the panel and slide it in next to the jack. The spare tire, well, it was a classic hiding spot. Cliched and desperate, but it confirmed everything Marina had suspected. He was running a shadow operation. That phone contained the texts I could not see, the calls to the wedding vendors, the intimate conversations with the woman in the green dress. Did you touch it? I asked. No, Lila said. I wanted to see who he was texting, but I was scared he would catch me. Good, I said, leaning forward intently. Listen to me, Lila. This is very important. Do not touch that phone. Do not look for it. Do not try to unlock it. If he catches you, he will know that the wall of secrecy is breached, and he might do something rash. I do not want you in the crossfire. But how will you catch him? She asked, her voice rising slightly. I have already caught him, I said. I do not need the phone. I have the paper trail. The phone is just a detail now. Lila nodded, appearing relieved that the burden of investigation had been lifted from her shoulders. She took a sip of her hot chocolate. He promised me, she said suddenly, her voice cracking. He promised me we were going to move. My stomach tightened. Move where? To the coast, she said. He said he's working on a big deal that is going to change everything. He said we are going to get a place near the water, a townhouse with a pool. He said it would be just us, and that it would be a fresh start. She looked up at me, the betrayal raw in her eyes. He did not say us as in you, me, and him, she whispered. He said us as in him and me, and maybe her. The pieces locked together with a final, sickening click. The deposit for Oak River Residential, the single status on the loan application, the just a friend introduction. It was all part of the same architectural blueprint. He was not just having an affair. He was orchestrating a complete replacement of his reality. He was going to transplant Lila into this new life, force her to accept a new stepmother, and leave me behind in Savannah with a drained bank account and a house full of memories. He was not lost. He was not confused. He was traveling a very specific route on a map I was never meant to see. "Lila," I said, my voice fierce. "He lied to you, but you are not going anywhere you do not want to go. You have a mother in Arizona, and you have me. You have rights. He cannot just pack you up like a suitcase and move you into a stranger's house." "I do not want to go with him," she said, a tear finally escaping and rolling down her cheek. "I want to stay here. I want to finish school here." "Then you will," I promised. "But for the next few days, you have to be brave. You have to go back to that house and pretend everything is normal. Can you do that? Can you act like you do not know anything?" "I think so," she said, small voice. "If he says anything about moving, just nod. If he introduces you to anyone new, just be polite. Do not fight him. Just observe. And text me if you feel unsafe. I am staying at a hotel downtown. I can be there in 10 minutes. I wrote the name of the hotel and the room number on a napkin and slid it to her. She tucked it into her pocket. We sat there for another hour, talking about safer things, her history project, the boy she liked in band class, the weather. I wanted to give her a moment of normalcy in the middle of the storm. When it was time to go, I walked her to her car. I watched her drive away, a 16-year-old girl forced to carry the weight of her father's sins. I drove back to my hotel room, which was essentially a war room now. My laptop was set up on the desk, surrounded by stacks of printed documents. I had an email from Marina. The subject line was, "The first salvo." I opened it. Attached was a copy of the letter that had been couriered to Dylan's office and the P.O. box that morning. It was a thing of beauty. It was a formal preservation of assets and cease and desist notice. It did not ask nicely. It commanded. It informed Mr. Mercer that divorce proceedings were imminent and that any attempt to sell, transfer, hide, or encumber any marital assets would be viewed as a violation of the court's standing order. It specifically listed the Savannah house, the retirement accounts, and crucially, my personal identity. You are hereby notified that any further use of Harper Bennett's name, social security number, or credit history for the purpose of securing loans, leases, or lines of credit constitutes identity theft and fraud. We have notified all 3 major credit bureaus and placed a fraud alert on Ms. Bennett's file. It was a legal bear trap. If he tried to pay for the wedding venue next week using a card linked to me, it would decline. If he tried to sign the lease for the apartment, the background check would flag him. I felt a grim satisfaction. He wanted to be Ethan? Fine. Let Ethan pay for his own life. I poured myself a glass of water and stood by the window. Looking out at the city lights, I wondered if he had received it yet. I wondered if he was currently shouting at a receptionist or trying to log into a bank account that showed 0 access. Then, my phone buzzed on the desk. I glanced at it, expecting Marina, or maybe Lila. It was a number I did not recognize. The area code was from South Carolina. I picked it up. A text message. Unknown. "Hello? I saw your number on Dylan's phone bill. He said you are the property manager for his rental in Savannah." I stared at the screen. Property manager. That was a new one. I was the friend, the bank, and now the landlady. A second message appeared. Unknown. But I found a receipt in his jacket pocket for a tuxedo. It was paid for by a Harper Bennett. A property manager does not buy tuxedos. My heart hammered against my ribs. It was her, the woman in the green dress, the fiancé. I did not type back immediately. I let the silence stretch. I needed her to be the one to bridge the gap. Unknown. I am Marin. I am supposed to marry him next Saturday. Please tell me the truth. Are you his friend? Because if you are just a friend, why are you buying his clothes? I sat down on the edge of the hotel bed. I looked at the ring on my left hand. It was a platinum band with a modest diamond. I had worn it for 5 years. I had polished it. I had been careful not to scratch it. Now, Looking at it under the harsh hotel lighting, it looked like a prop. It was a piece of costume jewelry for a play that I had never agreed to audition for. Dylan had not just cheated. He had built a labyrinth of lies so complex that he had trapped two women inside it. Maren thought she was the heroine of a romance. I thought I was the partner in a marriage. In reality, we were both just supporting characters in the Dylan Mercer show. I could have ignored her. I could have let her walk down the aisle and find out the hard way when the credit cards bounced at the reception. It would have been a cruel, poetic justice. But I looked at the text again. Please tell me the truth. She was asking the question I should have asked 5 years ago. I typed my response. I did not use anger. I did not use insults. I used the one thing Dylan feared most. Me. I am not his property manager. I am not his friend. I am his wife of 5 years. And if you are marrying him next Saturday, you should know that the deposit for your new apartment was paid from our joint checking account. I hit send. I watched the delivered status appear. I took the ring off my finger. It slid off easily, as if it had never really belonged there. I placed it on the nightstand next to the room key. The curtain was coming down. But before it hit the floor, I was going to make sure everyone saw exactly who was standing on the stage. I had been waiting for him. I knew the pattern of his rage just as well as I knew the pattern of his charm. After leaving the hotel, I had driven back to the house in Savannah not to stay, but to secure the perimeter. I had engaged the deadbolt and the security chain, a physical firewall to match the digital one Marina and I had erected 24 hours earlier. It was 6 p.m. when the silver BMW pulled into the driveway. I watched from the living room window, standing behind the sheer curtain. He did not park in the garage. He parked haphazardly on the grass, the tires tearing up the lawn he used to claim he loved so much. This was not the arrival of a husband coming home to reconcile. This was the arrival of a man coming to manage a crisis. He strode to the front door, smoothing his hair, checking his reflection in the glass panel before he reached for the handle. I saw him take a deep breath, composing his face into a mask of wounded concern. It was a transformation I had seen him perform 1,000 times before walking into a client meeting, but seeing it applied to me made my stomach turn. He turned the knob. It did not open. He jiggled it, frowned, and then fished his keys from his pocket. He slid his key into the lock and turned it, but the security chain held firm. The door opened only 3 inches, hitting the metal track with a sharp clank. "Harper?" His voice came through the crack, pitched in that perfect, worried baritone. "Harper, are you in there? Jesus, I have been calling you for 2 days. I was about to call the police." I stood in the hallway, smoothing the front of my blouse. I was wearing my work clothes, a structured blazer and tailored trousers. I was not the grieving wife in pajamas. I was the risk manager on duty. I stepped into his line of sight but did not undo the chain. "I am here, Dylan," I said. My voice was calm, devoid of the tremors that had shaken me in the car the night before. "Open the door," he said, his face pressing into the gap. His eyes were wide, searching mine for a sign of weakness. "Baby, what is going on? You scared the hell out of me at the wedding. You just vanished. People were asking questions. I had to tell them you had a severe migraine." "I did not have a migraine," I said. "And I think we both know I did not vanish. I simply removed myself from a situation where I was not welcome." He let out a short, incredulous laugh. "Not welcome? You are my wife." "Of course you were welcome. Look, I know you are upset about the introduction. It was a misunderstanding. I was caught off guard. Okay? The client? He is old-fashioned. He does not like mixing business with pleasure. I panicked. I said you were a friend to keep things professional. It was a stupid slip of the tongue." "A slip of the tongue," I repeated. "Like the credit application? Was that a slip of the pen?" He blinked. The worried mask flickered, revealing a flash of genuine confusion underneath. He did not know I had seen the credit report. He was operating on an information deficit. "I do not know what you are talking about," he said, his voice hardening slightly. "You are being hysterical. You are letting your imagination run wild again. Just let me in so we can talk about this like adults. It is humid out here. No, I said. He stopped moving. What do you mean? No. This is my house. Actually, I corrected him. This is my house. Your name is not on the deed. Your name is not on the mortgage, and as of this morning, your name is no longer on the alarm system authorization list. His face flushed a deep, mottled red. Are you serious right now? You are locking me out? Over a bad introduction at a party? Harper, you are acting crazy. You are destroying our marriage over nothing. I am not destroying anything, I said. I am simply finalizing the paperwork you started. I reached into the pocket of my blazer and pulled out a white legal envelope. I slid it through the crack in the door. What is this? He asked, staring at it as if it were a bomb. Take it, I said. He snatched it from my hand and ripped it open. I watched his eyes scan the document. It was a formal notification from Marina's office, stating that his authorized user status on all my credit cards had been terminated effectively immediately, and that any attempt to contact me should be directed to my legal counsel. You cut off the cards? He looked up, his eyes bulging. Harper, I have expenses. I have a business trip next week. You cannot just cut me off. That is financial abuse. The audacity of the accusation almost made me laugh. The only business trip you have next week is a walk down an aisle in Charleston, I said. And I am not paying for the tuxedo. He froze. The paper in his hand trembled. I do not know what you heard. You have been listening to gossip. Is it that crazy aunt of yours? Who told you these lies? The lawyer's name is on the letterhead, I said, ignoring his deflection. Her name is Marina Klein. She will answer any questions you have regarding the dissolution of our marriage. I have nothing else to say to you. I started to close the door, but he slammed his shoulder against it. The chain rattled violently, straining against the wood frame. You are not shutting me out, he shouted, the mask completely gone now. You think you can just pull the plug? I built a life with you. I gave you 5 years of my life. You are ruining everything because you are insecure and jealous. I am not jealous. Dylan, I said, keeping my weight against the door. I am accurate, and I am done. You are going to regret this, he sneered, his face contorted through the narrow opening. You are going to be alone. Harper, no one wants a woman who counts every penny and treats her husband like an employee. I was trying to secure a future for us. Is that right? I asked. Yes, he yelled. That apartment in Charleston? It is just an investment property. I was going to surprise you with the rental income. I was trying to build a portfolio for us, and you twist it into some sordid affair because you cannot trust anyone. I stopped pushing against the door. I looked at him, letting the silence stretch between us for 5 long seconds. Dylan, I said softly. What? He snapped, thinking he had won, thinking he had finally found the explanation that would make me doubt myself. I never mentioned an apartment. The color drained from his face so fast, it looked like the blood had been siphoned out of him. His mouth opened, then closed. He realized his mistake. By defending the apartment, he had admitted it existed. He had admitted he had signed a lease for a property I supposedly knew nothing about. He had validated my evidence without me even having to show it to him. He stammered. I assumed you knew. You checked the accounts. I thought... Goodbye, Dylan, I said. Wait, Harper, wait. His voice shifted gears instantly, dropping into a desperate, pleading whine. Baby, please, don't do this. Think about Savannah. Think about the Christmas we spent in the mountains. We are good together. We can fix this. I will cancel the investment. I will come home. Just open the door. I need you. It was the most dangerous weapon in his arsenal. Nostalgia. He was trying to weaponize the good times, trying to make me feel like I was throwing away a history that mattered. But as I looked at him, I did not see the man I had kissed under the mistletoe. I saw a stranger who had checked single on a loan application. I saw a man who had looked at his daughter and lied about her future. I do not need you, I said. And frankly, I cannot afford you. I shoved the door shut. I turned the deadbolt with a final, decisive click. I heard him pounding on the wood. I heard him shouting my name. I heard him kick the doorframe. And then, finally, I heard the sound of his footsteps retreating across the porch. I did not move until I heard the BMW's engine roar to life and fade down the street. I walked into the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. My hands were steady. I felt a strange sense of hollowness, like a room that had been cleared of furniture, but it was clean. It was spacious. I sat down at the kitchen island and opened my laptop. It was 7 p.m. A new email notification popped up on the screen. It was from our life insurance provider. Alert. Beneficiary change request denied. I clicked on the details. At 6:30 in the evening, while he was standing on my porch, while he was shouting that he loved me, while he was begging me to remember our Christmas together, he had logged into the insurance portal from his phone. He had attempted to change the primary beneficiary on his policy from Harper Bennett to Marin Miller, but he had made a mistake, or rather, he had underestimated Marina, because the policy was part of a bundle that was paid for from the joint account we had frozen that morning. The account was flagged, and because Marina had sent the cease and desist order to the insurance company's legal department at 9 a.m, the account was locked for administrative review. He had tried to flip the switch. He had tried to ensure that if the stress of this confrontation gave me a heart attack, or if I had an accident, the payout would go to his new fiancée, not the wife he was discarding. He was not just leaving. He was looting the building on his way out. I stared at the screen. The timestamp on the attempt was 6:32. That was exactly the moment he had told me. I need you. He did not need me. He needed the policy to clear. I closed the laptop. I walked through the house, turning off the lights one by one. The living room, the hallway, the kitchen. He had tried to turn off the lights on my financial existence. He had tried to leave me in the dark, wondering where the money went, wondering why I wasn't enough. But as I stood in the dark of my own home, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the silence of the empty rooms, I realized something important. I was not in the dark. I was the one holding the flashlight. And tomorrow, I was going to shine it on everything. The internet does not sleep. And unfortunately, neither does a scandal involving a wealthy regional sales director and a wife who decided to stop being polite. I woke up on Monday morning not to the sound of my alarm, but to the relentless vibration of my phone on the nightstand. It was a rhythmic buzzing that sounded like a swarm of angry bees. I reached for it, squinting against the early morning light filtering through the blinds of the guest bedroom where I had slept. I had not slept in the master bedroom. I could not bring myself to lie on the sheets Dylan had slept on while he was planning his wedding to another woman. I had 74 notifications, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and a platform I barely used, TikTok. I opened the first link sent to me by a cousin I had not spoken to in 3 years. It was a video. The caption was written in bold, frantic text. She said just, and I am dead. I pressed play. The video had been filmed by someone at a nearby table, likely a guest trying to capture the ambiance of the cocktail hour who had stumbled upon a demolition instead. The angle was slightly obscured by a floral centerpiece, but the audio was crystal clear. She is just a friend. Dylan's voice, smooth and dismissive. Then, the camera jerked as the operator turned to focus on me. I saw myself from the outside for the first time. I stood straight, my posture rigid, my black dress stark against the white tent. I am just the friend who paid $4,000 for the custom tuxedo he is wearing tonight. The video cut to black right after the bride's mother turned her head. It had 2.4 million views. I sat up in bed, the phone cold in my hand. 2.4 million people had watched the worst moment of my life. The comments scrolled by faster than I could read them. The way she said it so calmly. Queen behavior. He looks like he swallowed a bug. Divorce him immediately. Wait, did she say she bought the tux? The auditing queen. I felt a strange dissociation. They were talking about a character. They were talking about the wife. They did not know that the wife was currently sitting in an empty house in Savannah, drinking lukewarm water and wondering how to walk into her office without crumbling. But I was Harper Bennett. I was a risk manager. I did not crumble. I mitigated. I showered. I dressed in my sharpest navy suit. I applied my makeup with the precision of war paint. I drove to the Crescent Harbor Compliance Group headquarters, arriving exactly at 8:30 in the morning. The parking lot was the same. The security guard, Mike, waved at me the same way he always did. But as I walked through the glass doors and into the open-plan office, the atmosphere shifted. Heads turned. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. I saw a junior analyst quickly minimize a browser window that looked suspiciously like a social media feed. They knew. Of course they knew. The algorithm had fed them the drama over their morning coffee. I did not look down. I did not rush. I walked straight to the elevator, pressed the button for the 4th floor, and went directly to the Human Resources Department. I had an appointment with Sarah, the HR director. We had worked together for years. She looked up when I entered, her expression a mix of professional neutrality and personal pity. "Harper," she said softly, "close the door." I sat down. "I assume you have seen the video," I said. "It was sent to the company group chat by an intern," Sarah admitted, wincing slightly. "We are handling it. But Harper, are you okay?" "I am functioning," I said. "I am here to inform you that I am currently going through a high-conflict separation. There may be some noise. My husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, is behaving unpredictably. I have legal counsel, and I have taken steps to secure my data. But I wanted to get ahead of this. If he calls here, or if he tries to show up, I need to know the protocol." Sarah nodded, shifting into work mode. "We will flag his name at the security desk. He will not get past the lobby, and if he calls, he goes straight to voicemail. You do not need to worry about your safety here. Harper, we have your back." "Thank you," I said. "I intend to keep my work performance up to standard. This will not affect my quarterly review." "Harper," Sarah said, leaning forward, "take a personal day if you need it. Seriously." "No," I said. "If I take a day off, he wins. I will be at my desk." I walked back to my office. I sat down. I opened my spreadsheets, and for 8 hours, I let the rhythm of data entry soothe the chaos in my brain. But while I was working, Dylan was campaigning. He could not reach me directly. Marina had blocked his number on my phone, and his emails were being filtered into a folder that only Marina could access. So, like a true narcissist who has lost control of his narrative, he took to the public square. I did not look at his social media, but Marina did. She sent me screenshots throughout the day, each one labeled with a timestamp. 10:15 a.m. Instagram story. A black screen with white text. There are 2 sides to every story. It is sad when people use money to control and manipulate those they claim to love. Mental health is real. Guys, check on your friends. 12:30 p.m. Facebook status. Feeling betrayed. You think you know someone for 5 years, and then they try to destroy your reputation just because they cannot handle a simple misunderstanding. I am focusing on my peace and my future. God is good. He was painting a masterpiece of vague victimhood. He was suggesting, without legally saying it, that I was the abuser. That I was the one using money as a weapon. He was playing to an audience of mutual friends, colleagues, and family members, trying to salvage his image before the truth could catch up to him. My phone buzzed with texts from friends asking if I was okay, asking what Dylan meant by manipulation. I did not reply. Marina's instructions were clear. Do not engage. Do not defend. Do not clarify. Silence is loud. Let him scream into the void. But the void was about to answer back. At 4 p.m, while I was reviewing a compliance report for a shipping logistics client, a message popped up on my personal laptop, which I had kept open on a side table. It was Marin, the fiancé. Marin, I saw the video on TikTok. Is that you? I hesitated. I had told her the truth yesterday, but I had not heard back. I assumed Dylan had spun some elaborate lie to cover his tracks. Something about me being a crazy ex-wife who refused to sign papers. Harper, Yes, that is me. 3 dots danced on the screen. Marin. He told me you guys have been separated for a year. He said the divorce was finalized last month. He said you were just at the wedding because you are still friends with the groom's family and you are obsessed with him. Obsessed. The word made me laugh. A dry, sharp sound in the quiet office. Harper. We lived together, Marin, or we did, until I changed the locks on Saturday. His clothes are still in my closet. His toothbrush is still in my bathroom. Marin. He swore to me. He showed me the decree. He has a photo of it on his phone. He said the court sent it digitally. I froze. A decree? There was no decree. You cannot have a divorce decree without a filing, and there had been no filing. If he had shown her a legal document stating we were divorced, it did not exist in reality. Harper. Send me the photo. Marin. He will kill me if he knows I'm talking to you. He said you are litigious. He said you try to sue everyone. Harper. If he is telling the truth. Marin. Then you have nothing to fear. If he is divorced, the document is public record. Send me the photo. A long pause. 10 minutes passed. I stared at the screen, my heart rate climbing. Was she going to do it? Or was she going to choose the comfortable lie over the difficult truth? Then, the image appeared. It was a screenshot of a document on a phone screen. It looked official. It had the seal of the Superior Court of Chatham County. It had a case number. It had the words, Final Judgment and Decree of Divorce in bold. Capital letters at the top, and at the bottom, it had a signature, Judge Robert H. Cohen, and next to it, a date, October 12th. I downloaded the image immediately and forwarded it to Marina. Harper. Marina. Look at this. Now. I picked up my cell phone and called her office line. Her assistant put me through instantly. I am looking at it, Marina said, her voice tight. Where did you get this? Marin sent it to me, I said. She says Dylan showed it to her to prove we are divorced. He claims this was finalized last month. I heard the clicking of a keyboard on Marina's end. She was likely pulling up the actual court docket. Harper, she said, I am looking at the Chatham County electronic filing system right now. There is no divorce case under Mercer versus Bennett. There is no case under Bennett versus Mercer. This case number? She paused. This case number belongs to a traffic violation from 2019, a speeding ticket. He forged it? I asked, though I already knew the answer. It is a cut-and-paste job, Marina said, her voice turning cold and sharp. And it is a bad one. Look at the date stamp at the top right corner. October 12th. That was a Saturday. The court clerk does not stamp final decrees on a Saturday. And Judge Cohen? He retired 6 months ago. He is currently playing golf in Florida. He is not signing divorce decrees. I looked at the image again. Now that she pointed it out, I could see the subtle pixelation around the text. The way the font for my name didn't quite match the font for the standard legal boilerplate. It was a Frankenstein document, stitched together from pieces of old PDFs and arrogance. He created a fake court order, I said, the reality sinking in. He manufactured a federal document to trick a woman into marrying him. Yes, Marina said. And Harper, listen to me very carefully. This just stopped being a messy divorce case. This is now a criminal matter. What does that mean? It means forgery in the first degree, Marina said. It means uttering a forged document. In Georgia, that is a felony. It carries a prison sentence of 1 to 10 years. He used this document to defraud Marin, likely to get her to commit to the wedding, maybe even to get her to sign financial documents or put her name on a lease. She took a deep breath. He is not just a cheater anymore. Harper, he is a felon, and we have the evidence. What do we do? I asked. We let him dig the hole a little deeper, Marina said. Does Marin know it is fake? I have not told her yet. Do not tell her, Marina commanded. Not yet. If you tell her, she might confront him, and he might destroy the original file or claim it was a prank. We need him to use it. We need him to present it as real in a way that we can verify. But the wedding is in 5 days, I said. She is going to walk down the aisle thinking she is legally marrying him. If he marries her while still married to me, that is bigamy. Exactly, Marina said. And if he uses a forged divorce decree to get a marriage license, that is another felony. We are going to let him walk right up to the line. Harper, and then we are going to push him over. I hung up the phone. I looked at the text thread with Marin. Marin. Well, is it real? I typed my response carefully. I could not lie, but I could not show my hand. Harper. That document is not in my possession, and I have never appeared before a judge for a divorce hearing. It was the truth. It was enough to plant the seed of doubt without blowing up the investigation. Marin. Oh my God. I closed the laptop. The office was quiet now, most of the employees having left for the day. I looked out the window at the parking lot. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the asphalt. Dylan was out there somewhere, posting about his healing journey and toxic exes, convinced he was the smartest person in the room. He thought he could Photoshop his way out of a marriage. He thought he could edit reality like it was a social media post. He did not realize that reality has a way of fighting back. And reality, in this case, was a lawyer with a subpoena and a wife who knew how to spot a bad date stamp. I packed my bag. I walked out of the office with my head high. I did not check TikTok. I did not check Instagram. I did not need to watch the video of me saying, just a friend anymore. I had a new favorite image. It was the screenshot of a fake divorce decree, signed by a retired judge, dated on a Saturday. It was the receipt to end all receipts, and I was going to frame it. Wednesday morning brought a weather front that turned the Atlanta sky the color of a bruised plum, raining hard against the glass walls of Marina Klein's office. I was back in the leather chair, a position that was becoming alarmingly familiar. My laptop was open, but my eyes were fixed on Marina. She was not typing today. She was not pacing. She was sitting perfectly still, her hands clasped on top of a file folder that was much thinner than the others. Usually, Marina moved with the frantic energy of a woman billing $600 an hour. Today, she looked like she was sitting on a landmine. Harper, she said, her voice lacking its usual sharp cadence. We need to talk about history. Not yours, his. I took a sip of the lukewarm coffee I had brought from the lobby. I know his history. Marina. He grew up in Ohio. He played varsity baseball. He dropped out of law school after one semester because it was too theoretical. He worked in pharmaceutical sales before moving to medical devices. I am talking about his marital history, Marina corrected. I am his first wife, I said automatically. He has a daughter, Lila, from a relationship in his early 20s, but they never married. He told me that on our third date, he said he respected the institution of marriage too much to rush into it back then. Marina opened the thin folder. She slid a single sheet of paper across the mahogany desk toward me. It was a printout from a court docket in Franklin County, Ohio. It was old, the scan grainy and speckled with digital noise. We did a deep dive, Marina said. My paralegal, bless her paranoid heart, decided to run his name through the archives of every state he has lived in for more than 6 months. She found this. I looked at the document. It was a petition for divorce. Plaintiff, Sarah J. Mercer. Defendant, Dylan J. Mercer. Date filed, August 14th, 2004. I stared at the names. Sarah. He had never mentioned a Sarah. He was married? I looked up, feeling a fresh wave of nausea. He told me I was the first. He looked me in the eye and said he had waited for the right woman. He was married, Marina confirmed, for 18 months. They filed for divorce in 2004. Okay, I said, trying to process the lie. It was just another stone on the pile. So he lied about being divorced. That is hurtful. But is it legally significant? Does it matter if he was divorced 15 years ago? Marina leaned forward. This was the moment the landmine clicked. That is the problem. Harper, he wasn't. I blinked. Wasn't what? He wasn't divorced. Marina tapped the bottom of the page. Look at the final entry on the docket. It is dated January 10th, 2006. I read the line. Case dismissed for want of prosecution. What does that mean? I asked, though the cold feeling in my stomach suggested I already knew. It means they stopped showing up, Marina said. They filed the initial paperwork. Maybe they had a fight and reconciled. Or maybe they just got lazy and drifted apart and forgot to finish the process. But the judge threw the case out because neither party moved it forward. There is no decree of dissolution. There is no final judgment. She let the silence hang there for a moment. Legally speaking, Harper, unless there is a death certificate for Sarah Mercer that I have not found yet, and I have looked, she is very much alive and living in Cleveland. Dylan is still married to her. The room seemed to tilt. The rain lashed harder against the window. So, I said, my voice sounding distant to my own ears, if he is still married to Sarah, then he was never married to you. Marina finished the sentence. I sat back, the leather creaking beneath me. I looked at the ring finger of my left hand, where the pale band of skin was still visible. 5 years. The vows we took in the garden in Savannah, the taxes we filed jointly, the house he tried to put his name on, the tuxedo I bought him 3 days ago, it was all smoke. I am not a wife, I whispered. I am, what, a mistress? You are a victim of bigamy, Marina said firmly, and in the eyes of the state of Georgia, your marriage is what we call void ab initio. It means it was void from the beginning. It never existed. You cannot be married to a man who already has a wife. I closed my eyes. I thought I had reached the bottom of the betrayal, but there was a basement. Does this help me or hurt me? I asked. It was the only question that mattered. I could cry later. Right now, I needed to know if I was liable. It is a double-edged sword, but we are going to grab it by the handle, Marina said, her eyes gleaming with tactical precision. On one hand, it complicates the asset division because there is no marital property if there is no marriage. It becomes a matter of civil litigation to get back money he spent. But on the other hand, it destroys him. She started counting on her fingers. 1. It means you do not owe him alimony. You cannot pay spousal support to a man who is not your spouse. 2. It gives us tremendous leverage. Bigamy is a felony. If we report this to the district attorney, he is looking at prison time, not just a slap on the wrist. 3. It completely invalidates any claim he has to your house, your trust, or your retirement. He has no standing. He is effectively a stranger who tricked you into cohabitation. I took a deep breath. He does not know that we know. No, Marina said. He probably thinks this is buried so deep in a dusty county archive that no one will ever find it, or he is delusional enough to think that because they stopped talking. The marriage just dissolved by magic. My phone buzzed on the desk. It was a message notification. I glanced at it. It was from Marin. Since our conversation on Monday, Marin had gone silent. I had worried that Dylan had gotten to her, that he had spun a story convincing enough to bring her back into the fold, but now, she was back. Marin. I asked him about the divorce decree being fake. He told me I was crazy. He said his lawyer handled it, and maybe there was a clerical error with the date stamp. He gaslighted me. Harper. He looked me in the eye and told me I was being hysterical. I showed the phone to Marina. She nodded. Keep reading, Marin. So I went through his briefcase while he was in the shower. I found this. I think you should see it. He has been hiding it in a zippered compartment. An image loaded. It was a photograph of a wedding invitation. It was printed on heavy, cream-colored cardstock with gold foil lettering. It was expensive. It was elegant. And it was a lie printed in calligraphy. Together with their families. The honor of your presence is requested at the marriage of Ethan James Mercer and Marin Elizabeth Miller, Saturday, the 19th of October, at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the courtyard at River Landing, Charleston, South Carolina. I stared at the name, Ethan James Mercer. He is using the alias on the invitation, I said, pointing at the screen. He is marrying her as Ethan. Marina leaned in. That is fascinating. He is using his legal middle name, But he is creating a new persona. Is Ethan on his driver's license? No, I said. His license says Dylan. So he is going to stand at an altar, Marina mused, and pledge his life to this woman using a name that is only half real. And look at the venue. The courtyard at River Landing. I pulled up a map on my laptop. I typed in the address. It was in North Charleston, less than 5 miles from the Oak River residential complex where he had put down the deposit. It is a closed loop, I said. He built a terrarium. He has the apartment, the P.O. box, and the wedding venue all in the same zip code. He was going to move there, become Ethan, and leave Dylan in Savannah to rot. And Marin? Marina asked. Does she know he is still legally Dylan? She must know his legal name if she saw the fake divorce decree, I reasoned. But to his new friends? To the guests at this wedding? He is Ethan. He is rebranding. Harper. Marin. Do his friends call him Ethan? Marin. Yes. Everyone he introduced me to in Charleston knows him as Ethan. He told them he goes by his middle name because he wants a fresh start after his toxic past. I felt a surge of anger so hot it almost burned. I was the toxic past. I was the history he was trying to shed like a snake sheds its skin. Marina, I said, my voice steady. He is trying to get a loan for this wedding. I know he is. The deposit on the apartment drained most of the cash he could access. He needs capital to pay for the venue and the catering. He does, Marina agreed. And since we froze the joint accounts and cut his credit cards, he is probably desperate. She turned to her computer and began typing furiously. I am sending a proactive notification, she said. We are going to send a certified letter and an urgent email to the fraud departments of every major lender in the region, as well as the specific management of that wedding venue. We are going to inform them that an individual named Dylan Mercer, also operating under the alias Ethan Mercer, is currently under investigation for identity theft and bigamy, and that any contracts signed by him using the credit profile of Harper Bennett are fraudulent and unauthorized. Will that stop the wedding? I asked. It might not stop the ceremony, Marina said, hitting the enter key with a satisfying clack. But it will definitely stop the open bar, and more importantly, it creates a paper trail. If he takes money from anyone now, he is doing it with us having flagged him. It makes the prosecution easier later. Just then, the receptionist knocked on the door. She looked apologetic. Ms. Klein, she said. A process server just walked in. He has papers for Ms. Bennett? I froze. A process server? Here? Send him in, Marina said, her face unreadable. A man in a windbreaker walked in, handed me a thick envelope, muttered, "You have been served," and walked out. I held the envelope. My hands were shaking again, just a little. Open it, Marina said gently. I tore the seal. I pulled out the document. It was a motion filed in the Superior Court of Chatham County. Plaintiff, Dylan J. Mercer. Defendant, Harper Bennett. Subject, emergency motion for temporary spousal support and exclusive use of marital residence. I read the first paragraph, and I actually laughed. It was a sound of pure disbelief. The plaintiff, Mr. Mercer, asserts that the defendant, Ms. Bennett, has engaged in constructive abandonment by changing the locks on the marital home without notice, thereby rendering him homeless. Furthermore, the plaintiff asserts that he has become accustomed to a standard of living during the marriage that he can no longer maintain due to the defendant's vindictive financial freezing of assets. The plaintiff requests immediate temporary support in the amount of $5,000 per month, plus legal fees, and an order granting him access to the residence. He is suing me for alimony, I said, dropping the papers on the desk. He is suing me for $5,000 a month because I locked him out of the house he does not own. Marina picked up the motion. She read it, her eyes scanning the legal boilerplate. A slow, shark-like smile spread across her face. "Oh, Dylan," she whispered, "you absolute moron." "Why?" I asked. "This looks serious. He is claiming I abandoned him. Do you see what he did?" Marina pointed to the header. He filed this as a divorce action. He swore under oath, because these verified complaints are sworn statements, that he is legally married to you. She looked at me, her eyes dancing with triumph. He just perjured himself, she said. He just went on record, in a court of law, stating that he is your lawful husband. When we present the evidence that he is actually still married to Sarah in Ohio, this entire motion does not just get dismissed, it becomes evidence of fraud on the court. So he walked into a trap? He built the trap. Harper, he stepped into it, and now he is asking the judge to close the jaws on his leg. She tossed the motion back onto the desk. He wants $5,000? Marina laughed. He needs that money for Marin. He is trying to get you to fund his wedding to his third wife by claiming poverty as the husband of his second wife, who is not actually his wife. I looked at the paperwork. I looked at the fake invitation on my phone screen. I looked at the docket from Ohio. He is going to lose everything, I said. Not just me, not just Marin. He's going to lose his freedom. That is the plan, Marina said. But he thinks he is winning. He thinks this motion is going to scare you into settling. He thinks you are going to write him a check just to make him go away because you hate conflict. I stood up. I walked to the window and looked out at the rain. The city looked gray and washed out, but inside the office, everything was crystal clear. I do not hate conflict, I said, realizing it was true. I hate inefficiency, and Dylan Mercer is the most inefficient thing that has ever happened to me. I turned back to Marina. Draft the response, I said. Do not tell him about Sarah yet. Let him walk into the hearing thinking he is the victim. I want to see his face when you tell the judge that he has 2 wives and 0 shame. With pleasure, Marina said. I picked up my purse. I had a lot to do. I had to go home, pack up the rest of his clothes, and wait for the storm to break. Dylan Mercer was playing a role. He was playing the heartbroken husband, the victim of a controlling woman. He was playing Ethan, the fresh-faced fiancé, but he had forgotten his lines. And next week, in front of a judge, we were going to prompt him. The courtroom smelled of floor wax, old paper, and stale anxiety. It was a sterile environment, stripped of the emotional clutter that usually accompanies a breakup, which is exactly why I preferred it to the chaos of my living room. I sat at the plaintiff's table, technically the respondent's table today, since Dylan had filed the emergency motion, next to Marina. She looked predatory in a charcoal suit that was sharp enough to cut glass. On the other side of the aisle, Dylan sat with his lawyer, a man named Mr. Sterling, who wore a tie that was a little too bright and a smile that was a little too practiced. Dylan looked impeccable. He had chosen a soft gray suit, one that I had not bought him, and he wore an expression of wounded dignity. He did not look like a man who had been caught leading a double life. He looked like a man who had been locked out of his castle by a hysterical woman. The judge, the Honorable Evelyn Vance, was a woman in her 60s with reading glasses perched on the end of her nose and a reputation for having 0 tolerance for theatrics. She shuffled the files in front of her, the sound loud in the quiet room. Mr. Sterling stood up first. He buttoned his jacket with a flourish. Your Honor, he began, his voice smooth and projecting to the back of the room. We are here today because my client, Mr. Mercer, has been the victim of sudden and vindictive financial abuse. His wife, Ms. Bennett, has unilaterally seized the marital home, frozen joint assets, and left him without access to the funds necessary for his daily survival. She has acted out of spite, driven by unfounded jealousy, to punish a man whose only crime was working hard to provide for their future. I watched Dylan. He kept his head down, studying his hands, playing the role of the battered husband to perfection. He wiped a non-existent tear from the corner of his eye when Sterling used the word survival. We are requesting, Sterling continued, that the court order immediate access to the residence in Savannah, the unfreezing of the joint checking account, and temporary spousal support in the amount of $5,000 a month to maintain the status quo. Judge Vance looked over her glasses at us. Ms. Klein, your response? Marina did not stand up immediately. She arranged 3 stacks of paper in front of her. Then she rose. Your Honor, the status quo Mr. Sterling refers to is a fiction, Marina said, her voice cool and level. We are not here to dispute that Ms. Bennett froze the accounts. We are here to prove that she did so as a necessary measure to prevent criminal fraud and identity theft. Fraud? Sterling scoffed. This is a domestic dispute, Your Honor, not a criminal trial. It becomes criminal when the plaintiff uses my client's social security number to apply for loans claiming he is single, Marina shot back, and when he attempts to wire $6,500 of marital funds to a luxury apartment complex in another city, for a life he intends to live without her. Marina walked to the podium. She did not use adjectives. She used timestamps. Exhibit A, she said, handing a file to the bailiff. A video taken last Saturday at a wedding reception in Charleston. In it, Mr. Mercer introduces his wife of 5 years as just a friend. This establishes his intent to publicly disavow the marriage. Exhibit B, she continued, the rhythm of her voice speeding up. A wire transfer attempt initiated 2 hours later to Oak River Residential. This was not an investment property, as Mr. Mercer later claimed. We have the lease application here. It lists the occupants as 2 adults. Neither of them is Harper Bennett. Exhibit C, she said, dropping the heaviest pile. A credit inquiry from Palmetto Auto Finance, dated 4 days ago. The applicant, Dylan Mercer, checked the box for single and used Ms. Bennett's income to qualify for the loan. That is federal bank fraud, Your Honor. Dylan shifted in his seat. He whispered something to Sterling, who looked annoyed. This is all circumstantial, Sterling argued. Checking a box by mistake is not fraud. And the apartment? A surprise for his wife that she ruined. We anticipated that defense, Marina said. Which is why we have a witness. Dylan's head snapped up. He looked at the door. He expected, perhaps, a bank teller or a neighbor. The bailiff opened the double doors. Marin walked in. She was not wearing the green dress from the wedding. She was wearing a black turtleneck and slacks. She looked pale, her face scrubbed clean of makeup, but her eyes were burning with a cold, focused anger. She walked past Dylan without looking at him. I saw the color drain from Dylan's face. It was not a gradual fade. It was instant. He looked like he had been struck by lightning. He started to stand up. Marin, do not, he started to say. Sit down, Mr. Mercer, Judge Vance barked, slamming her gavel. Counsel, control your client. Marin took the stand. She was sworn in. Her voice trembled slightly when she stated her name, but it steadied when Marina began the questioning. Ms. Miller, Marina asked, how do you know the plaintiff, Dylan Mercer? I know him as Ethan, Marin said, her voice echoing in the silence. We have been in a relationship for 8 months. We met at a conference in Charlotte. Ethan? Judge Vance asked, writing something down. Yes, Your Honor, Marin said. He told me his name was Ethan James Mercer. He told me he was divorced. He told me his ex-wife was a controlling narcissist who refused to sign the papers, but that the court had finally granted the decree last month. Did he offer proof of this divorce? Marina asked. Yes. Marin reached into her purse and pulled out a piece of paper. He sent me a photo of this decree. I printed it out. The bailiff took the paper and handed it to the judge. Judge Vance put on her glasses. She studied the document for a long time. The silence in the room was heavy, suffocating. This decree, Judge Vance said, her voice dangerously quiet, bears the signature of Judge Robert Cohen. Yes, Your Honor, Marin said. Judge Cohen retired last April, Judge Vance said, looking directly at Dylan. And this document is dated October 12th, unless Judge Cohen came out of retirement on a Saturday to sign a decree for a case that does not exist on my docket. This document is a forgery. Sterling looked at the document, then at Dylan. He moved his chair slightly away from his client. Ms. Miller, Marina continued, what was the plan for next Saturday? We were getting married, Marin said. She pulled another item from her bag. It was the cream-colored invitation with gold foil. The wedding is booked at the courtyard at River Landing. The deposit was paid 3 months ago. He told me he used his bonus check. And did Mr. Mercer ever mention a woman named Harper Bennett? He said she was his property manager. Marin said. She looked at me then, her eyes soft with apology. He said she handled the rentals for his investment properties. He never told me she was the woman sleeping in his bed. Thank you, Ms. Miller, Marina said. No further questions. Sterling declined to cross-examine. He was smart enough to know that asking Marin questions would only dig the hole deeper. Judge Vance turned her gaze to Dylan. It was not a friendly look. Mr. Mercer, she said, I have a few questions. You may remain seated, or you may take the stand. I suggest you choose carefully. Dylan stood up. He looked cornered. His charm had evaporated, leaving behind a sweaty, desperate man who was realizing that the script he had written was being rewritten by the audience. Your Honor, Dylan said, his voice cracking. There is a simple explanation, Marin. Ms. Miller is confused. We had a brief fling. She became obsessed. I tried to let her down easy, and she fabricated this wedding story. Fabricated? Judge Vance held up the invitation. This is heavy cardstock. Mr. Mercer, it costs $5 a unit. That is an expensive fabrication. And the lease application? Did she fabricate that too? I use the name Ethan for security purposes, Dylan stammered. In my line of work, we deal with sensitive medical data. I try to keep my personal life private. So you signed a lease under an alias? Judge Vance asked. It is not an alias, Dylan insisted. It is my middle name. It is legal. And the marital status? Judge Vance asked. On the lease application, which Ms. Klein has provided, you listed your status as single. On the credit application for the BMW, you listed your status as single. Yet here you are, in my courtroom, filing a motion for spousal support based on a valid marriage. Which is it, Mr. Mercer? Are you married, or are you single? You cannot be married when you want money and single when you want a lease. Dylan opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He looked at Sterling. Sterling stared at the ceiling. I made a mistake on the forms, Dylan muttered. I was rushing. You seem to make a lot of mistakes with paperwork, Judge Vance observed dryly. Let us talk about the divorce decree Ms. Miller presented. Did you create that document? No, Dylan shouted. Too loud. I never saw that before. She must have made it to frame me. To frame you for what? Judge Vance asked. To force you to marry her? That defies logic. Mr. Mercer? The judge leaned back. She looked at the timeline Marina had provided. I am looking at your file, Judge Vance said, and I see discrepancies that go back further than this week. Mr. Mercer, where did you file your tax returns last year? In Georgia, Dylan said. Jointly, with Harper. And yet, Judge Vance said, holding up a paper from the stack Marina had submitted, a document I had not even seen her pull. The DMV records show you renewed your driver's license in South Carolina 6 months ago, using the address of a friend. That is perjury on a state application if you do not actually reside there. Dylan was sweating profusely now. The web was tightening. Every lie he had told to cover a previous lie was now colliding with the original truth. And regarding your daughter, the judge said, her voice softening slightly but losing none of its edge. Lila Mercer. I stiffened. I had asked Marina to keep Lila out of this. We have a sworn affidavit from the child's mother in Arizona, Marina interjected smoothly, stating that Mr. Mercer called her 2 weeks ago and told her he would be moving Lila to Charleston to live with his new wife. Marin, he requested the school transcripts be transferred. That is a lie, Dylan yelled. I never said that. We have the phone records, Marina said calmly. 11 minutes, 2 weeks ago, Tuesday. Dylan slumped into his chair. He looked at me across the aisle. For a second, I saw the old Dylan, the one who knew how to beg. His eyes pleaded with me to stop it, to intervene, to save him from the consequences of his own architecture. I looked back at him. I did not smile. I did not frown. I simply looked at him like he was a row of data that did not sum up. Judge Vance cleared her throat. "I have heard enough for today," she said. "The court finds the plaintiff's testimony to be inconsistent, contradictory, and frankly, insulting to the intelligence of this bench." She wrote rapidly on the order form. "First," she said, "the request for temporary spousal support is denied. Denied with prejudice. You will not see a dime from Ms. Bennett. Second," she continued, "the restraining order regarding assets is granted and expanded. Mr. Mercer, you are hereby enjoined from accessing, selling, encumbering, or transferring any assets held jointly or individually by Ms. Bennett. You are also ordered to return the $6,500 attempted transfer immediately. If that money is not back in the joint account by 5 o'clock today, I will issue a bench warrant for your arrest. Third," she said, looking over her glasses, "I am referring the matter of the fraudulent divorce decree and the credit applications to the district attorney's office for investigation into fraud and forgery. That is not my jurisdiction today, but I will make sure it becomes someone's jurisdiction tomorrow." Sterling put his head in his hands. "And finally," Judge Vance said, "Mr. Mercer, you are to vacate the marital residence immediately. You are granted 1 hour, supervised by a sheriff's deputy, to retrieve personal effects, clothing and toiletries only, no electronics, no documents." She slammed the gavel. "Court is adjourned." The sound cracked through the room like a gunshot. Dylan sat frozen. Marin stood up, gathered her purse, and walked out without looking back. She had gotten her closure. She had seen the monster in the light. I stood up. I felt light. The weight of his lies was no longer on my shoulders. It was on the public record. Marina packed her files. She leaned in close to me, her voice a low whisper that Dylan could not hear. "He thinks that was the worst of it," she said. "He thinks he just lost the money and the girl." She glanced at Dylan, who was arguing with his lawyer in hushed, frantic tones. "Wait until the next hearing," Marina whispered, "when we tell the judge about Sarah." "You did not bring it up today," I noted. "No," Marina smiled, and it was a terrifying thing. "Today was about discrediting him. Today was about proving he is a liar. Next time we prove he is not even a husband. He just admitted on the record, under oath, that he is married to you. He just solidified the bigamy charge himself." She snapped her briefcase shut. "He just dug his own grave. Harper, all we have to do now is push him in." I looked at Dylan one last time. He was red-faced, pointing a finger at Sterling's chest. He looked small. He looked ordinary. I turned and walked out of the courtroom. The air in the hallway was cool and clean. I took a deep breath. It was the first breath of air I had taken in 5 years that did not belong to him. The final hearing took place on a Tuesday that felt less like a legal proceeding and more like a funeral for a lie that had lived too long. The courtroom was the same. The judge was the same. But the energy had shifted. In the previous session, Dylan had been desperate, fighting for money. Today, he sat in his chair with a strange, brittle stillness, as if he knew the structural integrity of his life had been compromised, and one wrong move would bring the whole building down. Mr. Sterling, his lawyer, looked tired. He did not arrange his papers with his usual flourish. He looked like a man who had not been paid his retainer and knew, deep down, that he never would be. Marina Klein stood up. She did not need theatrics today. She held a single file folder, the thin one she had shown me in her office. "Your Honor," Marina said, her voice clear and carrying to the back of the room, "we are not here today to debate the division of assets. We are not here to debate alimony. We are here to address a matter of jurisdiction and validity." Judge Vance looked over her spectacles. "Proceed. Ms. Klein, in our previous session, Mr. Mercer filed a motion for spousal support based on his marriage to my client, Harper Bennett," Marina said. "He swore under oath that he is her lawful husband. However, new evidence has come to light that renders that claim not only false, but perjurous. She walked to the bench and handed the file to the bailiff. I present to the court a certified docket from the Court of Common Pleas in Franklin County, Ohio, Marina continued. It details a marriage between Dylan James Mercer and a Ms. Sarah Jenkins, dating back to 2004. It also details a divorce petition filed that same year. Dylan flinched. It was a small movement, a twitch of his shoulder, but in the stillness of the room, it was screaming. And here is the crucial detail, Marina said, turning to look directly at Dylan. That petition was dismissed for want of prosecution in 2006. There was no final decree. There was no dissolution. Unless Mr. Mercer can produce a death certificate for Sarah Jenkins, who is currently a third-grade teacher in Cleveland, he is still legally married to her. The silence that followed was absolute. The court reporter stopped typing. Mr. Sterling closed his eyes and pinched the bridge of his nose. Therefore, Marina concluded, his marriage to Harper Bennett in 2019 was void ab initio. It was invalid from the moment the vows were spoken. You cannot divide marital property, Your Honor, because there never was a marriage. Judge Vance picked up the document. She read it slowly. When she looked up, her expression was not one of anger, but of cold, administrative finality. Mr. Sterling, the judge said quietly, do you have a response? Sterling stood up halfway. I was not aware of this prior marriage. Your Honor, I need a recess to consult with my client. Denied, Judge Vance said. The document speaks for itself. Mr. Mercer, stand up. Dylan stood. He looked smaller than I had ever seen him. The confident sales director, the man who could charm a room, was gone. In his place was a man who had forgotten to close the loop. Is this true? The judge asked. Are you still married to Sarah Jenkins? We broke up, Dylan whispered. We stopped talking. I thought it just went away. It was 15 years ago. Marriage does not just go away like a mild cold. Mr. Mercer, Judge Vance snapped. It is a legal contract, and because you failed to terminate it, you have committed bigamy. You have defrauded this court. And you have defrauded Ms. Bennett. The gavel came down, not with a bang, but with a heavy, decisive thud. The marriage between Harper Bennett and Dylan Mercer is hereby declared void. The judge ruled. Ms. Bennett owes you nothing. There is no alimony. There is no division of her assets. The house in Savannah remains her sole property. The trust remains her sole property. She shifted her papers. However, the issue of fraud remains. Mr. Mercer, you are ordered to repay the $6,500 taken from the joint account, plus legal fees incurred by Ms. Bennett to defend herself against your frivolous motion. I am also freezing your personal assets until these debts are satisfied. I do not have the money, Dylan blurted out. You froze everything. I cannot access my accounts. That is a problem for you to solve, Judge Vance said, unsympathetic. And Mr. Mercer, I am forwarding this entire file, including the forged divorce decree you presented to Ms. Miller and the evidence of bigamy, to the district attorney. You might want to save whatever money you have left for a criminal defense attorney. Mr. Sterling here handles civil cases, so you will need to find someone else. Court is adjourned. It was over. In less than 20 minutes, 5 years of my life had been legally erased. I felt a strange lightness in my chest, a release of pressure I had not realized I was carrying. I walked toward the exit. Marina was already packing her briefcase, a satisfied smile on her face. Harper! I stopped. I turned around. Dylan was standing by the defendant's table. He looked frantic. His eyes were darting around the room as if searching for an exit that did not exist. Harper, wait, he said, taking a step toward me. You cannot just leave me like this. I have nowhere to go. The judge kicked me out of the house. I have no cash. I looked at him. That sounds like a risk management issue. Dylan. I am going to Charleston, he said, his voice taking on a desperate edge. I still have the apartment. I put the deposit down. I am going to go there and start over. I need you to unlock the car so I can get my clothes. I tilted my head. The apartment? Yes, he insisted. Oak River Residential. I paid the deposit. You saw the transfer. I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. I opened an email I had received 3 days ago and held the screen up for him to see. You really should check your spam folder, I said. He squinted at the screen. Subject: Notice of cancellation. From Oak River Residential Leasing Office. Body: Dear applicant, we received a notification of unauthorized funds regarding your security deposit. The transfer has been reversed by the issuing bank due to a fraud alert. Consequently, your lease application has been denied. Dylan stared at the phone. He read the words, his lips moving slightly. You... He looked up at me, horror dawning in his eyes. You canceled it? I reported it as fraud, I corrected him. Because it was. You used my money to rent a bachelor pad. I just claimed it back. But, his voice broke. But I have nowhere to live. Harper, I gave notice on my company housing allowance because I thought I was moving there. I am homeless. You are not homeless, I said calmly. You are unencumbered. Isn't that the word you used with Lila? You are free. I turned to walk away, but someone else was waiting in the aisle. It was Maren. She had come to watch the final act. She stood there, holding her purse with both hands. She looked at Dylan, who was now slumping against the table, and then she looked at me. She did not scream at him. She did not slap him. She just looked at him with a profound disappointment, as if he were a meal that had arrived cold. She stepped toward me. Harper, she said. Her voice was steady. Maren, I nodded. She paused, glancing at the man who had promised to marry us both. I wanted to say I am sorry. I did not know. I really believed him. I know, I said. He is very good at what he does. You were not the accomplice. Maren, you were the next victim. You just got out earlier than I did. Thank you, she said softly, for telling me the truth, for showing me the text. You saved me from walking down that aisle. We saved each other, I said. I looked at Dylan one last time. He was not looking at us. He was looking at his phone, probably trying to find a friend who still picked up his calls, probably trying to spin a new story about how the legal system was rigged against him. Goodbye, Ethan, Maren said to him. Goodbye, Dylan, I said to him. We walked out of the courtroom together, two women who had nothing in common except the same mistake, and we parted ways on the sidewalk. She went to her car, and I went to mine. There was no dramatic friendship forged, no vow to hang out on weekends. We simply shared a nod of mutual survival, and that was enough. I did not go back to the big house in Savannah. I had already listed it. The memories there were too crowded, too full of the ghost of a marriage that never technically existed. I drove to the school instead. I waited in the parking lot until the bell rang. Lila came out, her backpack slung over one shoulder. She saw my car and hesitated, then walked over. She slid into the passenger seat. She looked tired. Is it done? She asked. It is done, I said. The judge declared the marriage void. He is in some trouble, Lila, but he is still your dad. Lila stared at the dashboard. He called me yesterday. He asked if I had any money saved from babysitting. I closed my eyes briefly. Of course he did. I told him no, Lila said. I told him I spent it on books. Good, I said. I reached into the back seat and pulled out a folder. Listen, Lila, I am not your stepmom anymore. Legally, I never was. But that is just paperwork. In the real world, I am still the person who taught you how to drive and who knows you want to study marine biology. I handed her the folder. This is a list of scholarships for the programs we looked at, I said. And my number is at the top, if you need help with applications, or if you just need to escape for a coffee. You call me. I am not going to disappear just because he did. Lila took the folder. She looked at me, her eyes wet. "Thank you, Harper." "You are welcome," I said. "Now, go do your homework, and do not lend him money." She laughed, a wet, sniffly sound, and got out of the car. I watched her walk away. A girl who was learning the hard way that adults are fallible, but who now knew that she had a safety net that had nothing to do with DNA. 6 months later, the coffee maker gurgled, filling the small kitchen with the scent of roasted beans. I poured a cup and walked out onto the back porch. The new house was small. It was a cottage, really, tucked away in a quiet neighborhood with overgrown azaleas and a porch that needed painting. It was nothing like the Grand Victorian in Savannah. It did not have a guest wing. It did not have a 3-car garage, but it had a deed that sat in a fireproof box in the closet, and on that deed, there was only one name: Harper Bennett. I sat in the wicker chair and looked out at the yard. The morning sun was cutting through the mist. I thought about that night at the reception. I thought about the way the wedding coordinator had looked at me, the way the bride had frozen, the way Dylan had grinned and said, "She is just a friend." He had meant it to diminish me. He had meant to put me in a box, to label me as something temporary, something insignificant, something that did not require explanation or respect. He had wanted to erase my title to make room for his own narrative. But he was wrong. That sentence did not make me small. It made me see. It was the moment the fog lifted. If I was just a friend, then I did not have the obligations of a wife. I did not have the blind loyalty of a partner. I had the objectivity of an outsider. And that objectivity was the very thing that took him down. He had wanted to write a life story where he was the hero, the charming bachelor, the victim of circumstance. He wanted a story filled with drama and romance and sympathetic twists. I took a sip of my coffee. It was hot and strong. Some people write their life story with words. They spin tales and charm audiences and check boxes on forms that aren't true. But me? I write mine with paperwork. I write it with bank statements and timestamps and certified court dockets. And this time, as I looked at the morning sun hitting the azaleas in my own yard, I knew the most important thing of all. My name is in the right place. Thank you so much for listening to this story. If you enjoyed seeing justice served with cold, hard facts, please take a moment to subscribe to the Helena Revenge Stories channel. I would love to know where you are listening from. Are you tuning in from a quiet morning in London, a busy commute in New York, or a late night in Sydney? Drop your location in the comments below so we can see how far this story has traveled. And if you want to help this story reach more people who need a reminder that the truth always wins, please hit that like button and smash the hype button. Your support means the world to me. See you in the next story.